Hi there, Nigel Saunders here of KW Bonsai. Welcome to part 2 of my Ficus microcarpa pre-summer work. In the last video we tackled the top of the tree, and in this video I'm going to be styling the root base and repotting the tree. At the end of part 1 I was looking at images of full-size ficus trees, looking at the roots, the surface roots, and trying to get an idea for styling this root base on the tree. These aerial roots are already starting to thicken up, and some of them are getting quite thick, and they'll continue doing that over the years. So I don't think I really need to eliminate any, but I may have to reposition some. And that'll be done during the repotting process when I get the tree out of the pot and we rake out the roots, and then I can see if I have to reposition roots and that kind of thing. I'm repotting the tree over top of a boot tray. They're really good to catch all your soil so you don't make a mess. I'm going to start by root pruning the roots that are underneath the pot, just to get them cut so we don't have to pull them out of the holes, the drainage holes. Out the back of the tree I've got a large root that developed outside of the pot. So I'm going to have to do some clipping there. This tree was repotted just under 2 years ago. So let's get the tree out of the pot and see what the root system looks like. There we go. All this moss on the tree just grew here all by itself. So I'm just going to remove what I can, and the rest will just get raked away. I probably won't reuse this moss. It's starting to climb up the aerial roots here. I'm going to start raking out the root system now, and I'm going to be starting from the center of the tree and gently raking towards the outer edges. So after 2 years, the roots aren't packed in here so tightly that it's impossible to rake them. They're at a good density for repotting. I just comb around the aerial roots, trying to keep the root system intact, and then we'll replant them in the new soil. Even though the density of the roots isn't that high, they are quite tangled, so work is going quite slowly. I'm just being very careful not to damage the roots, but there is a lot of untangling. There's a lot of different layers of roots. Got those aerial roots, we got our surface roots, and they're all intertwined. On the old full-size ficus trees, you see aerial roots that look like fins on a rocket. They're, tall and skinny, and they look like a fin. And I've never seen that on a bonsai tree yet. And I don't know why. Maybe the bonsai ficus trees aren't old enough yet? I don't know. I imagine it's a genetic characteristic of the root that makes them form like that. And maybe some species of ficus are more prone to that type of a root system, that kind of buttressed, finned root system. But that's kind of the look I'd like to get eventually, if I can, on this tree. It's been about half an hour, and I've got all the top of the roots combed out, so I'm just misting them to keep them nice and moist while I'm working on the bottom of the roots. So let's flip the tree over now and have a look at the bottom. And I'll start raking out the bottom. Again, going from the center out towards the edges. I've got the root base all combed out now and sort of washed. I don't have a tub to dip it in or a hose or anything, but I just use the hand sprayer and tried to wash them the best I could. So yeah, there's the roots underneath. You can see the woody part of the trunk down here. And all the surface roots. It's time to start root pruning the tree. I want the roots to flow from the trunk nicely into the soil. So I've got some problem areas. I've always had this root that sticks up here. And I think that's going to have to be carved away. I want everything to be going down to a flat plane. I don't want like multi-levels of roots. I want them all to go down into the ground. So a lot of these can just be sorted out by hand. They're flexible enough. But this one's a problem. I'm going to have to fix that. Here's a side view of that root. So instead of coming down from the trunk and flowing into the soil, it kind of comes almost horizontal with the soil level. So I'm going to have to carve away the top of that root. There's lots of fine roots underneath here that will feed that root. It won't die or anything. But I got to remove this top part that just sticks up above the soil. To remove this, I'm going to try using the big bypass pruners and try and get in here on an angle and just cut it off. I can't really get it from this direction. I think I'll have to go in from sort of this direction and cut upwards. Okay, here I go. I'm going to have to come in from down low like this and cut upwards like this. So there's the part I removed. There goes a little centipede. I may even remove more of that root. It's kind of a thick root, and I don't want all those thick roots. They don't look very miniature with the tree. So let's come in here and see if I can get another cut. Try and leave this root up top here. That's a nice cut. I think that's better. The little centipede's still there. He's happy. Okay, that solves that root. There's another one here, right here, that runs along that's also not really going down into the soil. It's more horizontal with the soil. So I'm going to see if it can be, I guess I can position that so it goes down into the soil. Yeah, it's flexible enough. It can be repositioned. I'll just have to rake out some soil that's behind it so it has room to grow down. Like that. That'll be good. There's another root here that's similar to this one that could be removed. It's one of the original big old thick roots. I think that one should be reduced also. There's a first cut. I may reduce that further. If I can get at it here. There's a root up top that's good, so maybe we'll just take it back a little further. Keeping that root on the top. There. There's a root over here that's kind of doing something strange. It was fused to that root. We'll just cut it away there. And there's a crossing root here that needs sorting like that. I think most of the other roots are pretty good. Like I think this one I'll probably have to cut it off, but I can position it down into the soil like that. And there's a root here that's also taking a strange direction. And we'll get rid of that. That kind of solves all the major areas of the roots that need refining, except for this one. I gotta prune this one off also. Just the end of it. As a next step, I'm going to clean and prepare the pot, and then we'll test fit the tree in, and then determine what exactly needs pruning on the roots. I've got the pot cleaned up, and I'm trying to pick the front of the pot. The glaze is a little high here. It's nice on this side. On the other side of the pot, the glaze is a little high here. It's still a little high here, so I think I'm going to pick this as the front of the pot. So let's test fit the tree in the pot and see what root pruning we need to do. So I got the front of the pot, and I have to get the front of the tree, which I think is here. So you can see the roots fit nicely in the pot, but there's a lot that are too long and need trimming. So I want to prune all the roots so I have some growing space in the pot before the roots hit the edge of the pot and start taking a weird direction. So I'm just going to comb out the roots in the pot here and see what's overhanging the lip and what needs pruning off. Okay, that looks good for combing all the roots out. Now it's time to start doing some pruning. This root at the front here overhangs the pot, and there's a thick one at the back that also overhangs the pot, so I'm going to have to trim them off shorter in order to get them to go down into the soil. So I'm going to try here, keeping this ramification. So I can just get that into the pot. That one fits in nicely. The one at the back I'll have to prune also. Taking a bit off. So that then fits into the pot. The tree's fairly symmetrical, but I will offset it in the pot a little bit. I think just slightly to this side, because the movement of the tree is to the right-hand side. So we'll trim for kind of around here. So let's start pruning. Again, I'm going to leave some space for the roots to grow in the pot before they hit the edge of the pot. So this type of pruning I'm doing now, it's like when I did the top of the tree. It's a profile prune, getting all our roots basically in check for length, and then we'll go in and do a detailed structural prune after this procedure is done, just like the top of the tree. I'm going to prepare the pot now. I'm going to get a thin layer of bonsai soil on the bottom, my drainage screens in, and then I'm going to start arranging the roots, positioning the tree, and then that'll determine a lot on what I need to prune. And the height of my tree in the pot, whether we want it up higher, keep it the same height, and that kind of thing. It's time to position the tree in the pot now. So here we go. I have to make sure all these roots are raked out nicely. I was going to place it slightly to the left. I'm looking at the position of the tree in the pot from back here, and I'm not liking it. It looks too crowded over to the left-hand side. So I think it's going to have to come over a bit. I think that'll do. I think that's pretty good. It's not Not too far off center, but it's just enough to kind of counterbalance the right-hand movement at the top of the apex. And I think the height in the pot, that's about as low as I can get the tree. And I kind of like it. There's a lot of aerial roots happening and a lot of buttressing roots. So I think that'll be a good level. I'll just have to get everything down into the soil. Here's a shot of the tree down at eye level to the lip of the pot. You can see there's going to be a lot of exposed roots, but I think it'll look really good. So let's start filling it in with soil, getting all those roots in position and planted. There's a few roots I missed pruning here. Okay, I'm going to get some soil on here first. That'll hold that root down. Some of them want to spring up, but we'll just do our best to keep them down. I may have to put some rocks on top of them. That would work. Let's see if I have a big stone here. I can place a stone like that at the back to keep the root down into the soil. I think that'll work quite well. Just put that there for now, that rock. Then I have another stone I can place here that'll hold this root down into the soil. The soil will all have to be worked into the roots. So I'm going to hold this root down, pour our soil all around it. And then I'll put the stone on top. And that'll hold it in the pot until it gets established. Before I add more soil, I'm going to start working it into the roots. Just eliminating all the major air gaps. Keep some moisture around the roots to keep them alive. So again, this soil mixture is just half perlite, half turfus, and then there's about 10% fir bark, shredded fir bark thrown in. And again, I don't know what the fir bark does, but maybe to hold some water and fertilizer in the bark particles. It's supposed to help the trees out. The soil's nice and dry, so it's flowing in between the roots really nicely. I'm going to need a small stone to hold these roots down also. So there we go. That'll hold them nicely in the soil. Okay, I'm going to add some more soil now. So I want to keep the soil in the pot fairly level. I don't want to pile it up at the middle of the tree. I would rather it stay level and the roots go down into the soil, rather than the soil coming up into the roots. Using my spoon to level the soil. Like I said, it's the best tool I've found for doing this. There's an overall view of the progress. I can see I've got the soil a little high on the left-hand side. I'll have to work that in a little and lower it down. I can see the cut part of the root, that big thick root I cut off here, just slightly above the soil. So that was good work cutting that off. Doesn't stick up anymore. I've got some small pebbles I can hold some of these renegade roots down into the soil. I've got the rocks placed up to hold these roots down now. So they all seem to be pretty good going into the soil. Maybe I need one more on there. Yeah, I'll just place one on here too. That holds the roots down to the soil so they'll continue growing. I think that's looking pretty good. I just need a little more soil on this side. These rocks will all be removed, of course, in probably a month or two. Maybe even sooner, who knows. We'll see how well the tree grows. Okay, I think I'm ready to water the tree. Got everything in place here. Here I go with fresh rainwater. I just collected this the other day from the rain barrel, because we actually had rain instead of snow for once. I can hear the soil sucking up the water. We'll give it another watering a little later on. The repotting's all done now. The tree's watered. It's all settled in there. And it's ready to grow new roots and new leaves. I think all the work I did on this tree on the weekend will really improve the quality of the tree in the future. So I'm really happy with the repotting. I really like the root structure. And I think today's repotting is just going to make that even better. Defoliation, root pruning and repotting is quite a stressful event for the tree. But here in the plant room it gets nice light. It's a nice warm, humid atmosphere. So the recovery should be quite good. If it were to go outside, I'd be more worried about it with drying winds, full sun, that kind of thing. So in the plant room, recovery for this tree should be no problem. With all the work done now on the Ficus microcarpa from seed, it's time for today's update. Today's update is my African acacia trees, the sweet thorn and the fever trees. In the last video I quite severely root pruned them, cutting off the tap roots, and I just thought I'd let you know that it looks like they're surviving quite nicely. At the end of the videos now I'm doing an update, but I'd also like to show some viewers' picks. So if you have any bonsai trees you're working on that you think would be interesting for the channel, send me some pictures. I'll put the link in the description below. It's thekwbonsaisociety at gmail.com, all one word. And I'll feature some of the viewers' picks at the end of each video. Today's closing comment is about tropical trees. I've heard people say, why would you bother growing tropical trees? They're not worth anything. They're houseplants. I think most of the people making these comments don't really have any experience with tropical trees. They don't know what to look for. A tropical tree does go through seasonal changes, just like any other hardy tree. And as they get older, they get their own beauty, just like any other tree. My personal feeling is that an old tropical tree, well done, is worth just as much as any other tree, any other traditional Japanese or Chinese tree. A great bonsai is just a great bonsai. Thanks for watching. Nigel Saunders of KW Bonsai. We'll see you next time.